In our first story, it calls for a focus on behavioral change of sort as several people continue to defy the order to wear face masks. President Akufo-Addo gave this order in his 11th address to the nation on Sunday, and this directive will be backed by an executive instrument making it an offense not to wear the nose mask. Now, drive through the central business district of Ghana's capital is showing people just not obeying these rules or badging. PSA Nana Yausafo has more on the story.
A trader at the central business district insists she has a face mask, yet for close to 5 minutes, she frantically combs through the pockets of her apron for the mandatory material. She heaves a sigh after finding she has a sanitizer. It is 2 days since the president announced that leaving homes without masks is an offense. A good number in the large trade area go about activities with their faces naked to the threat of pandemic in the air. For others, including a few children engaged in sales, the cost of face mask is just out of their purchasing power.
The bag in the market no good. I know sell them, it's here my own.
So you don't have 5 cedis on you to buy nose mask?
I know it once they no get them.
Others who do have the face mask seem to wear it only for a few minutes, exposing their faces to the risk of droplets in the air. The conditions, they say, are uncomfortable. Social distancing is better at the various stores as compared to pre-COVID times. However, as the grounds offer a one-stop shop for clothes, food and electronics, a few corners experience the heat of crowds coming in or leaving for home. But with relaxed standards in protecting faces and noses practiced by some individuals here, it may be a matter of time till trade goes beyond commodities to a health risk the nation cannot afford at the moment.
With the rising toll of death, every life matters. Every droplet is a threat. Joy News urges you to keep your mask on at all times. Work, do what you must safely, stay alive.
Well, you will only stay alive if you go around your community and obey the cautions. Now let's take you to the Ashanti region next, where about 200 workers at the Kwadaso SDA hospital in the Ashanti regional capital, Kumasi, undergoing coronavirus test after the hospital's medical director died of the disease. Now, some of the personnel at the hospital are believed to have come into contact with the late 48-year-old Dr. Harry Owusu-Boateng, who passed away on Saturday. My colleague Ohimin Tewia of our health desk has more in the following report.
Director of Ghana Adventist Health Services, Dr. Paul Amocheme, confirmed the sad news to Joy News. He explained a test on the late physician after his death proved positive for COVID-19, with what he describes as underlying conditions.
It is true that the medical director or medical superintendent at Kwadaso SDA Hospital in Kumasi has passed away on the 13th June 2020. When the news was reported to us, a team was dispatched to take a sample to test, to establish what might have led to the demise. And when the results came, it was established that it was due to COVID-19, yet with underlying health or medical conditions.
Adventist health authorities are collaborating with the Ashanti Regional and Kwadaso Municipal Health Directories to test all hospital staff. He assured of public safety and good quality care, asked the hospital's premises is fumigated and other preventive protocols strictly enforced.
We've put in all the necessary measures in place to screen them, pre-triaging and others. We strongly believe that some of our workers may be at risk, and for them to be on the safer side, it will be more expedient to test them all. So we've tested more than 200 workers. We've also fumigated the hospital, and now work is ongoing.
Late Dr. Boateng, described by colleagues as hard-working physician, had been working with the Kwadaso SDA hospital since 2013. His demise has come as a shock to the medical fraternity and the public, especially patients who have experienced his work. Though some of the hospital staff have recorded positive COVID-19 cases, Dr. Boateng has become the first death casualty at the facility.
This is not the first time, but this is the first time that we have experienced a death from COVID in our facility. During the COVID pandemic, we put measures in place that every 2 weeks we test our staff to make sure that we are safe, so that we can also take care of those who seek our services. So we provided all the necessary precautions and the infection prevention control measures put in place to help the facility and our staff.
From Kumasi, Ohime Ntewia reporting.
Already, COVID-19 is also depriving many families in the Ashanti region of the customary and cultural obligations to their departed relatives, as funerals also remain on hold due to the pandemic. Commercial funeral organizers and contractors, including criers, are also feeling the pinch. Again, Ohime Ntewia on the beat.
For Asantis, funerals are meant to honor the transition of the soul of deceased persons to the ancestral world. Such rites are uniquely and flamboyantly done under the strict Ashanti culture. Funerals have become serious business and social gathering to mourn the dead and also make merry. The coronavirus pandemic has, however, caused many funerals to be postponed, called off or reduced to quick burial services. It means the usual hard grief process is put on hold, becoming a more difficult terrain to navigate. Naomi Mensah Ejay lost her 76-year-old father, Francis Kojo Mensah, an ex-military officer 8 months ago.
Oluma ifrimu 16th November no. Inti nurse ye yento to yesi be yin 28 March. Ya ye bi operation ye bi bia wi akopento oluma ifio nyina ni akra na chi. Amase ye ni bibia e basa.
The family, before Ghana recorded the first confirmed case of COVID-19, had set March 28, 2020 for the funeral. Introduction of presidential restrictions in pandemic response action forced an indefinite postponement of the funeral, which means additional cost.
Mami we so 20 years mo an ese be remu. Nti esenka ye be ka omumie nu abom. Na ese amane ma asa kwa e basa nti ye ma ye ready aho pa.
Naomi and her relatives are not alone in such dilemma, as hundreds of families face similar situations. Commercial funeral criers and contractors are also at the receiving end.
Yeah, Rade.
Meet one of them, a Raja from Poma. Bereaved families hire her services as a sit-in widow or presenter of Adechredie or range of funeral gifts.
I'm a Juma, me a yase a Juma. Upu biamane swama. Obuha untiminsu. Emyase bia bibia ya no na enye nanso wani nsu enti mitimisu na wo waso na wo achi ayi opeso yi na ye na wo hyehyɛ nema said the Bible can say so bi wona se yensie ne ya opon bakra so faso e chen.
Together with 7 other people she employs, her opportunities have grounded. She can only hope to see COVID-19 over one day.
Senyame boawa na wotwe bi wo ho a timinye bi a opepepe dunai na da enye kura na wotwe bi wo ho a obenya opepepe nai sese de ni nyina hwede.
Comfanochi Auto Health and Ambulance Service is a well-organized group operating on the precincts of Ghana's second largest referral facility. When the news team visited the terminal at about 5 p.m. on Friday, Tens of them had been rendered idle. Virtually, no bodies are cleared from the morgue for burial. Nana Owusu Jemfi is the acting chairman of the Driver Association. From Kumasi, for Joy News, Ohimi Interior reporting.
I will take you to the Upper West region, where the acting regional director of health services, Dr. Damien Ponyere, has disclosed that out of the new confirmed cases of coronavirus in the region, 9 of them are casual employees of Anglo-Gold Ashanti malaria control program. Well, they were engaged in an indoor residual spraying exercise in the Sisala area municipality when the contraction happened. He says 7 of these new cases are currently undergoing treatment at a health facility in Tumu, and the others transferred to the Upper West Regional Hospital for treatment. Our lead correspondent, Rafiq Salam, has more.
Line health workers in the Upper West region for the past few weeks appear to have a grasp of the COVID-19 situation in the region. The region for close to 3 weeks did not only have the number of confirmed cases continuously pegged at 22, but the number of recoveries at 21 as well. It appears the bubble is being busted and they have to get back to work with the announcement of 10 more new cases, bringing the region's tally to 32. Acting Upper West Regional Director of Health Services, Dr. Damien Ponyere, told a news conference that 9 of the confirmed cases are casual employees of Anglo-Gold Ashanti Malaria Control Program.
One of the new patients is a 32-year-old female from Bulu in Sisala West District who was residing in Greater Accra region. She returned to the community on the 30th May 2020 to attend a funeral ceremony. She was taken ill shortly on arrival and reported at Gulu District Hospital for medical attention, where a suspicion of COVID-19 was made. She was isolated and samples taken, which turned out to be positive for COVID. The 9 others were among 56 casual employees of Anglo-Gold Ashanti Malaria Program, AGAMAL, in the region who had exit screening after performing indoor residual spraying exercise in the Sisala areas. 7 of these new cases have been translocated to a treatment center in Tumu, while the remaining 3 are being taken to the Upper West Regional Hospital Treatment Center. To date, a total number of 32 confirmed cases of COVID have been reported in the region. Of this number, 21 persons are fully recovered and discharged. 6 districts in the region have now reported at least 1 case of COVID-19 disease.
Dr. Damien said they have been earnest, started contacting persons who may have come into contact with the infected persons. He expressed worry over the reluctance of most members of the public to wear face masks following the easing of restrictions. On the issue of alleged stealing of a mattress and a flat screen TV at the Wa Municipal Isolation Center, he said investigation is ongoing to apprehend the culprits.
Was broken into, and a mattress and a flat screen TV had been taken away. This report was also made to the Wa Municipal Assembly that has been in charge of the security of the place. And so I think investigation is ongoing.
Dr. Damien concluded by giving an overview of case count of cerebrospinal meningitis that has killed 48 persons in the Upper West region.
A total of 356 suspected cases have been reported from the region, with 48 related deaths. Over the past 7 weeks, no district has reached an epidemic threshold. Only few districts continue to report sporadic cases.
Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam.
Well, that's it. The latest news update we have. But look, we do have the latest newspaper headlines review. We'll be doing that next. Inshira and, of course, Joseph Akabley, our lead correspondent, will be joining us. And we'll take a look at some of those critical issues. Mama Vio Swabwaje, right here. Stay with us. Well, so we're ready to do the newspapers. Mamavi is here. Well, Mamavi, how are you?
Why are you changing your tone?
Yeah, just
why
you know,
are you trying to be nice?
One of those
Let everybody know
you try to
how you treat me, like how you communicate.
Oh, it's not fair.
Don't try and polish it.
Yeah, I want to say very good morning to Ifo Antoinette. You live in Rome for the United Kingdom. It's been a while I've mentioned your name. Sally for Combat, you live right here in Ghana. And you're the head of primary healthcare pharmacy, the Boku Presbyterian Hospital. And then in the meantime, I have to say good morning to Benjamin Kojo to Formeno. You also live in the UK. Have a great time.
You're done.
I have more.
I see because there are people in the UK watching. That's why you're trying to.
Yeah, we have international.
You're changing your tone and everything.
Audience spectrums in our demographics. So, Charlie.
Well, good morning to all our friends who are watching our show right now. This is the AM show. If you missed the news, don't worry. We're onto the newspapers. We'll fill you in on everything that you've missed. Two of our colleagues are joining us via Zoom for the review. Joseph Akabley, and there you are, Inshira. Good morning to you guys.
Joseph.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Inshira, we're fine.
Inshira, where are you?
He's monitoring the weather.
I'm standing out in the open. It's quite cloudy, and there's a very soft breeze from the south heading towards the northeastern part of the country. Whether it would rain or not, I'm not too sure.
I was just going to say that's our weatherman, Inshira.
I thought a question to Inshira would be, what happened to him yesterday? He disappeared before the review ended.
Oh, I know what happened. I know.
You know, when you have colleagues like Joseph on your team, you know questions like this will always be asked. Yes, technology failed. But today, I'm with you, and all is well.
Okay, good.
Fantastic.
So Inshira will do the Finder in the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Akabley will do the Daily Guide. And I think the Statement, is that it? And I've got the Daily Graphic newspaper. So shall we start with you, gentlemen, via Zoom?
Yeah. Okay, so the Ghanaian Times banner headline, 1,100 land in Accra from different destinations. COVID-19 update says the Konfanochi orders doctors and nurses at ICU to self-quarantine for 14 days. The NHIA boss tests positive for COVID-19. On the front page of the Finder, airlifting of Ghanaians stranded abroad. They quoting a different number, 1,056 people, and coming home from today through to Sunday. Noguchi gets 10,000 test kit from Ghana COVID-19 private sector fund, and the dexamethasone is a life-saving drug. Of course, yesterday we heard about that groundbreaking news that there's a drug that's cheap and might be able to help. Back to you, Joseph.
We can do the front page of the Daily Guide now. It has this story related to the banter between the NDC and NPP over fulfilled promises. NPP pokes NDC. Amidu office's manifesto promise. It has a photograph of Kojo Nkrumah, Minister of Information, and Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa of the NDC. NDC exposed in EC 6,300 mischief, and Nigel Gaze's sex partners came to beg. That's attributed to Kennedy Japan. And SHS heads prepare for reopening also on the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper. The front page of the Daily Statesman, it says 375 aspirants, 168 constituencies. That's, sorry, as the MPP prepares for the June 20 primaries, also on the front page of the Daily Statesman newspaper. COVID-19 not excuse to reject new voters register, also on the front page of the Daily Statesman.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'll give you that respite.
Let's do the Daily Graphic whilst you get ready for that. Front page of the Graphic, 33,367 to serve as registration centers. Exercise takes place in 5 phases. The Electoral Commission boss appeared before the Special Budget Committee of Parliament. We know that the Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu wasn't happy about some of the revelations. One is the fact that the Electoral Commission explains that they are going to carry out this exercise in phases. We're going to be opening up the issues of the Electoral Commission, the registration exercise, and the election itself later this morning on our show. So don't miss that extensive conversation. Also, standoff at Tema Ports. Port workers, married units disagree over container vessels. In the center spread, curbing tax fraud, GRA sets up audit departments. Also, we're committed to evacuating all stranded Ghanaians. That's Foreign Minister Ayoko Boche there. UN commends Ghana for promoting child rights. And on the back page of the Daily Graphic, 2 sign railway development pacts and construction of fish processing factory starts in Jakiti. The Gold Street Business, next front page, workers fret over falling real income, rising inflation deepens woes created by job losses, pay cuts, delayed wage payments. Also, huge technical support for Ghana's textile industry impending as JIPA pursues buyers for the sector. Ghana moves to generate 1 gigawatt nuclear power by 2030. That it comes with a picture of the Energy Minister, Peter Amewu. On the back page, Vodafone reassures customers of data security and rejects misleading privacy claims. We know somebody's gone to the court. Ghana Heart Initiative donates PPEs to, that's the Kolibu Teaching Hospital and the Comfort Nochi Teaching Hospital. That will be it for this paper, the Gold Street Business.
Well, let's do the dispatches on the front page. MPs hide coronavirus status for fear of losing seats, psychologists. SHS heads in the Eastern region ready to protect students against COVID-19. Abu Sakara on Ghana's winner takes all. That's on page 2. Drivers, farmers, and teachers responsible for 640 teenage pregnancies in a month in the central region, and ex-President Hela Liman's years in Ghanaian politics, all the history you can get on Ghana's social, political, economic development. You can all get it in the Daily Dispatch. Let's go to the Custodian, has on the front page. Judgment day for MPP MPs, top lawmakers to win primaries. We have Hajia Alima Mahama, MP for Nalrugo Gambaga, who is the only female apparently MPP MP for Northern Ghana. And according to the paper, that's the Custodian, she's tipped to win the primaries. Mr. Obiamwa, MP for Ikrapim South, also tipped to win. Custodian, tipping. Then we have MP for Laura Anthony Abeifa Kabo, will be among the winners, the Custodian. And then we have this one. I don't know whether this is supposed to be a verdict or I'm supposed to take the Custodian's verdict. Navrongo Central MP Joseph Kofi Adam faces stiff opposition but likely to win.
You know,
Custodian.
when you started, I was just going to mention Madam Abai again. I was going to say that's a place to look at as well. We'll see how that goes, but it's just this weekend. And it will be interesting. Yeah. Really interesting. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see those who come back and start talking.
One of the main symptoms of COVID is coughing, sneezing, some of it, all on the front page.
Is somebody coughing on Zoom?
I don't know, yeah. Tama West MP, that's Kingsley Carlos Ahinkrama MP, expected to go through. Hey, Charlie, only. And then MP for Takrade Kwabna Otredaku Mensa faces tough opposition but likely to survive. Almost like an earthquake, but you're likely to survive. So we have other stories there, COVID, EC. You know, we have Dr. Bosman Asari right here on the show. Now let's do the dispatch. The Daily Dispatch says all the related issues about coronavirus and why the MPs are heading, but is the Daily Guide that remains interesting. It fully focuses on the politics. MPP pokes NDC, Amido office's manifesto promise. And then we have NDC MPs exposing all the related issues of EC 6,300 mischief. And then Nigel Gaze's sex partners came to beg. He has an attached picture of Nigel Gaze as well as Kennedy Japan. SHS heads prepare for reopening. All right, please.
You're done?
Yeah, I'm done.
There's, I think, was it Inshira who talked about, yes, Konfuanochi and the doctors, that was also reported by us yesterday. But the news today is the fact that the Ghana Medical Association president in the region, Dr. Pakwesi Beidou, says that out of the 80 doctors who have been infected with COVID, 20 of them are from the Ashanti region. But there's also another worrying situation where the Konfuanochi Teaching Hospital, because they don't have a facility, a separate facility to keep persons with COVID, they're having to share with other wards at the Konfuanochi Teaching Hospital. So that's a situation that, you know, he says is warning that the Ashanti region COVID-19 mortalities could increase if government does not set up a dedicated facility to receive COVID-19 positive patients. Erastus Asari Donko had an extensive conversation with Dr. Pakwesi Beidou. We'll bring you that conversation on our show later this morning. I just thought that I would, you know, just share a bit of that warning with all of us. The fact that Konfuanochi is huge, it serves, you know, a huge populace as well. And if they don't have a separate facility where they will keep persons with COVID-19, so they're having to share with the general wards, that's not good at all. But at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, that's the Rich Hospital we call it, there are fears, you know, when pregnant women who are going to have their babies, people are generally afraid because of COVID-19. Well, they're trying to warm the hearts of people who are getting ready to deliver. They said they have a particular place that they've prepared. So don't be afraid. If you want to have your child there, you can. So that was also in our news this morning on radio. I thought I'll share that. Any picks, any particular stories that you guys want to highlight on?
Joseph, you have any pick you want us to focus on? You were at the briefing yesterday. Joseph, you're muted.
No, I'm not. This is Cheryl is muted.
Okay. Please go ahead. You have any pick, Joseph?
Yes, the story relating to the Ashanti region, the bit about the need for an isolation center. I recall an interview Latif had with Dr. Kaba. He is in charge of institutional care for the Ghana Health Service. And the point was made that a lot of Ghana's recoveries for COVID-19 are actually persons who are in treatment facilities. They tend to recover faster than those who are being kept at homes and being treated at their homes. And so that is another thing that we need to note about the fact that it's very necessary for them to have a dedicated facility. And it's very worrying that they have to be using the wards that others sometimes also may come into use. And the fact that the staff strength of the hospital has also been affected. I think we need to take the fight a notch higher in terms of how we are dealing with the facilities and protecting the healthcare professionals. And I heard at the GMA last Friday make the call that they want their members to be tested first and promptly, so that those who are infected are quickly removed and treated quickly, because they are the ones who have the capacity to assist all of us. And if their numbers are affected greatly, it means that in the long run, we, the persons without any knowledge in this space, when we get the disease, will virtually have no one to take care of us. And so I think that is an area that government should be stepping up its effort in terms of assisting healthcare professionals and ensuring that they don't even get infected in the first place.
Absolutely.
And we do know that we have these number of doctors and the health nurses that are at the forefront in Ghana. According to the statistics we have from the statistical survey from the last census, there's an indication that out of 100,000 people, we only tend to have about 1.8 doctors available. And generally, we just have in excess of some 3,000 doctors, 14,000 nurses. We still don't have enough. And so while the numbers may pale in terms of how small they are compared to the numbers that we have of the professionals, we still very much have to be careful about the extent to which they are infected. I am greatly worried because I'm very close to many health professionals who are the front line, either friends or family, etc. And what they tell me is now frightening, because at least in the hospitals in Accra and Tema, initially they were reporting the cases from the communities through the contact tracing. Now they are treating patients at adult emergencies and normal wards, and by the time they come and take the samples, and because of the delays in bringing back the result, We're having health professionals in hospitals in Tema and Accra getting infected because by the time they test positive, they've been either crowded by families and health professionals. And we should be worried. We don't have even enough of them at these hospitals, and the cases are now coming to the wards. They are being treated with initial symptoms like malaria, etc. And by the time they see they are positive, the health professionals are affected. I don't know. I think something needs to be done about the way the regime is done. Now, we have to, I think, in my estimation, declassify or perhaps restructure who becomes a frontline worker in this. It's no more the only health professionals who take care of the sick or the positive patients. It has to be all those from the OPD to the wards to the isolation centers.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, it's quite frightening when you live and then you work and relate to some of the health professionals. They are so frightened, it's not funny.
Well, they have every cause to be concerned. I think that, you know, we never anticipated that we would get to where we are now. We believe some of the measures we had put in place earlier on was going to forestall where we find ourselves right now. The biggest challenge is going to be that when the cases, as they are coming in now, start testing our systems, that's where we have problems. Now, you're going to have quite a number of people who themselves are to care, now needing care. And that will place even more pressure on the resources that are not enough. You don't have a lot of beds to patients, and now you're going to have to combine and cordon off spaces on general wards to bring in infectious disease patients onto the ward. I mean, if you would do the permutation, and the picture just doesn't look good.
Yeah.
It comes down to us just taking personal responsibility and ensuring that you're safe. If I do what I have to do, then we limit it. But we need to do something and do it very quickly.
So yesterday we talked about the mandatory wearing of masks and the fact that it's got implications now. I did my checks. We actually don't have any existing law. We need to wait for the EI. That's still being worked on. So again, President made an announcement and said, it's mandatory. The police will deal with you if you don't wear the mask. That was on Sunday, but here we are Wednesday, and there's no backing instruments.
Yeah. It's frightening.
Any other picks?
Well, I wanted to take a look at the elections, and I know that there's always a hue and cry ongoing. Yesterday, the Electoral Commission went to meet the committee and then also the leadership of Parliament appropriately. And I see that the minority and sections of the majority may not be happy, but everybody needs their hands on the wheel. Everyone needs his or her hand on the wheel. And it's important that we all make this work. This is what we have. We have a certain timetable. If the structure of our democracy is not protected, it also affects the very fiber or fabric of our society. And everything is vested in the state. If you take a look at the 1992 Constitution, the executive president is even more powerful. So we need to make this work. And I believe the cooperation of all is important. I don't know what Mama V or Inshira also thinks about all this.
You are spot on that. For me, I think that we need cooperation. And I think the dialogue, whenever there's a lot of pushback on any policy, I think it's important to interrogate it. In my estimation, we often discount opposition complaints as just opposition for the sake of being opposition. The independent candidate for presidential aspirant, Mary Kofi Gad, has been reported as saying that he thinks that the compilation of a new voters register is not what we ought to be doing right now, not necessary, especially with just less than 6 months to go to elections. The borders are currently closed, so Ghanaians who are stranded, who may not be able to get on this voluntary move to be repatriated back home and be able to get on the electoral roll will be disenfranchised. I think that there are quite a lot of elements that are not fully assembled in this case, but the EC may have a set of facts, and they see what we don't see, so we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. but I think it's a very delicate thing, and cool heads must reign. And more importantly, we must understand that everything we do around elections is a matter of posterity, protecting the integrity of the state that we have and ensuring that we're on the agenda and the right track to our development. We cannot play games with this one, be it political or parochial, not on this.
Yeah, I like very much what you just said. If you do, we will see it. In the end, it will show. Joseph?
I agree with Inshira perfectly. I mean, and I think I look forward to the decision that the Supreme Court will give on June 23 related to the compilation of the voter register. I mean, the matters that Inshira raised, some of them are not really issues that may be of consideration to the court at this point in time. The issues about persons who are outside the country who can't participate in this registration because of the border issues, among others, as to whether at that time, even though we would have opened up the border, we don't know. Then the cases are just rising. And so, I mean, I think it's important that the courts in coming to the conclusion, even though mostly to look at the legal argument that is before it, I mean, there are times in the past that the court has taken account of public policy as well. And so those are matters that the court cannot ignore, obviously. And so we hope that it comes with a decision that the parties involved in the case will come to some form of agreement and ensure that we all come together and have this process, because the legal experts have made it clear to us that we don't have any option than to have elections. And so if we are going to have it, it should be a conduct that we must all come to some agreement and be comfortable with the process, because if you have elections and people are not comfortable with it and who don't trust it, I mean, what is the point in the elections in the first place? It should be such that people trust it and can even go through the process to challenge it if they disagree.
Well, we have a conversation with Dr. Bosman Asari.
I think the question I would like to ask Dr. Bosman will be related to the ROPA. You know, the Supreme Court has given an order that Ghanaians outside abroad should, the Ghanaians residents abroad should participate in the 2020 elections. If they cannot allow them, they should announce 6 months ahead of that. I mean, with the COVID-19, obviously, that is a challenge. They are compiling new register. They can't even register them. As to whether they've suspended that exercise entirely, those are questions that we should be finding out. And I look forward to that interview with Dr. Bosman. Great.
That will be on our show this morning. If you've got questions for us, kindly send it to a WhatsApp number so I can carry it with me and ask all your questions. It's a conversation with Dr. Bosman Asari. And it's not just how it played out in Parliament yesterday, but, you know, a much more deeper conversation as to the general election as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Do we have time for one quick story?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's really, so the back page of the Ghanaian Times, I really like this story. Whole West launches a one household, one fruit tree initiative. So they're giving away seedlings, about 100,000 cashew seedlings. They're also doing 1,500 citrus seedlings and about 2,500 coconut seedlings. For me, this is important because if we're going to really save our earth, we need to ensure we have a lot more trees to do the carbon offsetting. And more importantly, these being fruit trees could also provide, you know, some food security for these areas. And if they're able to continue this across the entire country, I think we would change the ecosystem greatly. It would inure to our general benefit both now and in the future. I think it's a laudable policy and initiative.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for environmentalist Inshira and the arts lover, comrade Joseph Akable behind Bob Marley.
All right, but big ups to the whole municipality. I think they're doing something great. Yesterday we talked about the bylaws that they put in place so that if you don't wear the mask, they spot fine you. And now this initiative, which is Whole West. So they're doing something great. We need to shout them out. Thank you, guys. This is where we have to end the review. Looking forward to the English Premier League.
Yeah,
today.
starting today. Yeah.
Yes, I'm not looking forward to it because
I thought the league would have been cancelled.
No way.
See, all the anti-Liverpool supporters, we see you in your true colors.
All right, guys, have a good one today. That's
a good one. I enjoyed it.
Joining us for the review. Stay with us. We've got sports, and I guess the biggest thing we're talking about is the English Premier League is back, is on tonight. Details coming up here on our show. Stay with us.
And we have to do business. It's always brought to you by EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank. And on AMBase this morning, hotels across Ghana are reopening with new safety protocols amidst the coronavirus pandemic. Already, COVID-19 has wreaked havoc to the struggling hospitality sector in Ghana, with over $2 billion estimated to have been lost so far. Josiah visited two major hotels, Labadi Beach Hotel, as well as the Kempinski Gold Coast City, to experience the extent to which safety protocols have been stepped up, all to protect customers.
The lockdown restrictions have eased, and already the devastated hospitality sector is open for business.
This is the Labadi Beach Hotel. When you're checking in, remember that things have changed this time now that the COVID-19 has struck. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
So he's a valet, and the first thing that he prompts me to do is to use the hand sanitizer. This is a must, especially when COVID-19 is very much keen in these uncertain times. You'd have to sanitize your hands first before you can access any services. So he opens the door to limit human transmission and even human contact in that way. Let's now get into the lobby now, where the first thing that greets you is the electronic notice board, which of course isn't about the services but about COVID-19 safety tips. This is how serious Labadi Beach Hotel is taking the COVID-19 protocols. You'd have to wear a mask. It is a must here at this hotel. When you walk into the reception to check in, the very second thing you'd have to do is to sanitize your hands once again. They're leaving nothing to chance. But one interesting thing is the footnotes on the ground. These are social distancing protocols that they're observing here at the hotel for the safety of clients and that of receptionists. You can see the receptionist there. If you'd have to attend, she'd have to attend to you. You'd have to ensure that you observe the social distancing by at least stepping onto this particular footnote. If you step here, you're required to check in, and these are specialized pens that you use in checking in. These are sanitized pens that the hotel has come up with. You could see the label there. Please use a sanitized pen here. Each and every minute after a client uses this pen, you'd have to pick it up, you use a pen, then you drop it into the bin. Here, it gets sanitized once again for reuse. But one particular thing too is that when you've checked in, you've entered into your room and you're checking out, you drop the keys here, it gets sanitized once again. All these in place to ensure the safety of not just clients, but of course, workers here.
Cleanliness is key in here. Desktops, doorknobs, and all other surfaces are sanitized every 15 minutes.
We clean every 10 minutes, especially anytime a guest comes and goes, we clean.
With social distancing protocols in place, Labadi Beach Hotel is cutting down on its sitting numbers.
As you can see, we've created arrangements in such a way that we observe the social distancing. And previously it wasn't like this, but now because of the COVID-19, we have to ensure that all the protocols are respected. And so social distancing 1 meter apart is very critical. We have even made it more than 1 meter apart so that we don't have any issues at all. This is a lounge bar, and so of course it's meant for relaxation.
So here in this restaurant, you could see that it's very much different from as you visited previously. At this particular place, previously it had a 75 capacity table seating. But as you could see now, it's reduced drastically to just 30 tables in sitting. This is also part of the precautionary measures they're taking here to ensure social distancing. No jokes, no excuses. They have to do this even if it means cutting down or having an impact on their profit margins.
Labadi Beach being the institution that it is, health and safety is everything to us.
Renee Vincent Ernst is managing director for Labadi Beach Hotel. He tells me much investment has been lost, but they still have no choice than to keep investing in safety protocols.
It's been devastating. This year has been a terrible year where we were expecting so much. But we still managed to reach some compromising with the staff and so far in the way of reductions in pay. So we haven't had to lay anybody off, which we're very, very proud and happy about. But yes, it has been devastating indeed. The new social distancing obviously goes synonymous with less cover space and so forth. But that's just something we need to work with. It's a new day, it's a new dawn. We are going to look at the glass as being half full rather than half empty. We're ready to welcome people back, even though it's with social distancing and so forth. And by having all the measures in place which we've mentioned, also in our conference and banqueting facilities, again with the social distancing, we're ready to accept guests and to welcome them back and to this new way of hotel keeping.
Added on items that we've added to our amenities, we have the face masks. We give it out to the guests for free. Then we have the sachet sanitizer in addition. Then we have our nano spray. After cleaning up the room, we spray we use the steam to disinfect the whole room just to welcome our guests so that he walks in safely.
The Labadi Beach Hotel is home to millions of revelers. The coronavirus pandemic has ripped off this once vibrant place of relaxation. Revered as one of Ghana's luxurious hotels, Kempinski Gold Coast City is open for business.
So at the Kempinski Hotel, this is one of the largest hotels in Accra, and safety protocols are also very tightened here. When you walk in here, you wouldn't find the valet meeting you face to face. You rather find a notice indicating that no face mask, no entry. If you don't have your face mask on, you cannot enter. But before I go, there are some protocols I'd have to observe. It's going to take my temperature, after which I use the hand sanitizer before entering inside. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So that's about it with Kempinski. Nothing much of human interaction here to help deal with issues of social distancing. We get to find out what they have inside, how prepared they are amid COVID-19 as it reopens to the general public. Okay. All right, so this is the front desk of Kempinski Gold Coast City. We're going to be moving in there to at least check it, to get to know how the process exactly is. You could see this is one of the clients there. He's just been served. It's now my turn, but just be reminded of this particular signage here. Social distancing is very keen for them, so you could see the various barricades that have been mounted here to ensure that. So who's going to be serving me this morning? Thank you very much. Good afternoon. So this is my card. What do I need to do first before?
Your ID, you show it to me.
I show the ID to you first. Okay. And I have to sanitize my hands, I see. So you're going to help me with that?
Sure. Please give me the hand and I press it for you.
That's perfect. All right, interesting there. So I now have my access to the room that I will be checking in. It's very important for me to get to know what exactly is in this room in terms of the special preparations and operations there amid COVID-19. It's quite an interesting scene here. You could see this is the gallery bar of Kempinski. It's kind of currently out of service, and it's not very much of a serious issue, unusual matter. We do know that currently there is a ban on the operations of bars across the country.
I'm here to experience the new safety protocol put in place by managers. The knobs of these elevators are sanitized before and after a client gets on.
So I see it's a maximum of 2 people in this lift. Social distancing protocol. 1-5.
As I made it to my room, I noticed something different. My doorknob has been disinfected even before I settle in.
I'm going to be at, and you can see already disinfection going on. Hope you're fine. Yes. Okay. Thank you. So I think one interesting stuff that I see on the doorknob is the no service required, do not enter. What it means is that no one is going to enter inside there while I'm in. Room service is out of the deal unless maybe I could request for it, and even if it's done, it's going to be left at the doorknob. So I just get to see what's inside there. I think could you help me? Could you help me? All right, so let's get inside to see the changes to the room in these COVID-19 times. This is the room that you're going to be seeing for yourself. It's quite interesting. What do I have to see here? What do we have here? It's, oh, so there's a nose mask, a face mask as well that I'll be using while I'm here. Maybe I could take this one off and see. It's it's very interesting how most of these hotels, especially Kempinski, has evolved over matters of COVID-19 just to ensure the safety of their customers. It's very interesting how everything has been put in a very lovely package. I think there's a hand sanitizer that I could use, but before that I have to use it on my hands before I dispose of the, nose mask that I had on.
Highly cautious of the safety of clients, room services have been cancelled. It's safety first. After checking out, the rooms are sanitized and left for 72 hours. That's 3 days before the next check-in. Ghana's hospitality sector has been devastated by the scourge of the coronavirus. Millions of cities have been lost, but hoteliers are braving up for the opportunities ahead. Namesh Nambia is the general manager for the Kempinski Gold Coast City.
Sanitizers, disinfectants, masks, these are the new normals. So these have all played very strongly on to the bottom line of most of the businesses. And yes, it is true that it has become more expensive. The profitability has reduced drastically, but that is the cost of doing business and staying in business today.
Finally, we are, as you said, not in certain times. These are uncertain times. What's going to be the strategy of Kempinski moving forward? Because, the plans you had, let's say, a few months ago cannot be the same plans you execute now and, moving on. So what's going to be the strategy moving forward?
So, very rightly said, COVID has created a lot of uncertainty in the market, and I think the most important thing at this point is to try and make some sense of this uncertainty and try and take decisions that are friendly and helpful to businesses. The first step obviously is for the international borders to open up whenever they would, and that would determine how many people still come in. And once people come in, the protocol that is defined to make sure that they are safe and they're not carriers will also define how many people come and actually stay into the hotel.
Even as hotels and restaurants open for business, the sector still needs to heal from the deep wounds of the coronavirus.
We have seen firsthand the extent to which COVID-19 has had a grave impact on the hospitality sector. We have visited so many hotels in Ghana, and we have assessed the level of security and safety protocol that they are adhering to as they reopen for business in the wake of COVID-19. It's very interesting to note that even though so many people out there, yourself, myself, could be concerned about our health, major hotels like that of Kempinski are very much confident that with the strict safety protocols and social distancing measures they have in place, safety of clients and that of even their own workers is top-notch. Of course, they're telling us that it's not just about profits, it's also about the health of customers and how far COVID-19 could not disrupt business operations in the short to medium term. I'm Charles Aite for Joy Business.
And we did hope that you all get educated. That is the impact of coronavirus on Ghana's hospitality industry. And we went to Kempinski. I'm sure that our business team had to take a lot of time and also making sure that the precautions are well managed. Well, as we also move on, we have to look at the impact on the environment as well as related issues of how a newfound drug that has been experimented on a number of patients in the UK could be the real game changer, or is it not? Right here in the tropics, we're talking Africa and the rest of the rainy weather areas. There's a big question in the scientific community about all these drugs that are being experimented, and then also the environment we find ourselves, and especially looking at the rainy season, how it has an impact on coronavirus, its treatment, and then the related sanitary or sanitation problems we have right here in Ghana. So we're here to look at it in our next assessment. We'll be right back. And then when we come back, we'll have all the relevant discussions on Zoom. And we will be introducing Professor Simon Mariwa. He is a health and development geographer. and is joining us live. Good morning to you, Professor Mariwa. If you can hear me, Professor Mariwa. Please, all of you, make sure you unmute.
Yes.
You unmute.
Good morning.
Yes, unmute your sounds, the three of you. Dr. Kofi Amega is head Department of Clinical Nutrition and Dietetics, and so is also joining us. Dr. Amega, let me see. Morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, morning, Doc. And then I also have
well.
Charlie, we did good. We did good. I've read a number of your instructive articles and pieces, and quite revealing. We seem to have all the right, all the right scientists, immunologists, virologists, dietitians, and clinical people right here in our country. And we have aggregated some of the best ones we have right here today for this discussion. And Dr. Samuel Esiembedu, and instructively, he's a regular contributor on coronavirus since the season started right here on the show. And again, Dr. Samuel Esiembedu, we say thank you for joining us. He is a virologist as well as a microbiologist by way of practice. He has trained extensively in where the virus itself started in China, and so knows a lot about, you know, the topography of the areas, and we're in to do a good discussion. And myself, since I got this topic that I needed to do this, I had a lot of reading to do. And so I have some questions on mind. But let me first start with you, Dr. Kofi Amega. Our environment, the environment that we have, this wet environment, the tropical environment that we have, what is that correlation of a rainy season and coronavirus? Instructively, just to start with.
Okay, so I think what is instructive to note is that these viruses and other pathogens are affected by temperature, humidity, rainfall, I mean, largely by weather variables, climatic variables. And there's a lot of empirical evidence that suggests that, I mean, whether the temperatures are becoming higher or lower, these pathogens can thrive. You know, so now, as it relates to COVID-19, there is some emerging evidence that is coming that suggests that as the temperature levels start to increase, then of course, we are going to see a significant decrease in the number of COVID cases. So in our settings here, where with the onset of rains, it's expected that the temperature levels are going to be lower. So once temperature levels are going to be lower, then the viruses are going to thrive. So it is anticipated that we are going to see an increase in the cases with the onset of the rains.
Professor Mariwa, if we take a look at the related issues that the rainy season tends to pose, that also means that this has added an additional burden, so to speak. Apart from the rainy season, we also tend to have poor in sanitary conditions. How does that then complicate the issue in the first place?
All right, thank you very much. Roland, I think it's very interesting to have such a discussion on a prominent channel like Joy News. First of all, I would like to indicate that we look at the sanitation conditions in Ghana. We are talking about a situation where about 22% of Ghanaians are practicing open defecation. And when we're talking about open defecation, it means that people do not have access to toilet facilities, and for that matter, they, as it were, do it in the open. You're talking about on beaches, in the bushes, and all of that. And we know that about 60 to 70% of OPD cases in our hospitals are related to poor environmental sanitation. I mean, poor waste management, poor toilet facilities that people do not have, and all of that. So what it means here is that with sanitation being that poor and COVID in our midst, people's health are going to be compromised. I mean, we are talking about if people are suffering from sanitation-related diseases, it's going to compromise their immune systems. And we know that COVID thrives very well when people's immune systems are compromised. So with poor sanitation and high prevalence of poor sanitation
related diseases. Here we are talking about cholera, diarrhea, typhoid, dysentery, and all kinds of diseases that are related to poor environmental sanitation. And with the coming of the rainy season, we are going to have a very challenging capacity of our waste management institutions to deal with the waste that we have, because we have poor road networks that are leading to the final disposable sites of the country. So if you look at final disposal sites of most of our communities, mostly in our cities, the roads are so bad that during rainy season, we have high breakdown of vehicles that are transporting this waste into the site. And for that matter, there's going to be reduced capacity for most of these waste management companies to collect and dispose of waste. It means you're going to see more waste on our streets. And as you know, anytime we have rainy season, we have a lot of flooding. And when we have flooding, we have increase in cholera outbreak in the country. And for that matter, people's immune system are going to be compromised. And for that matter, COVID will take undue advantage of the situation and deal with the country the way we have never seen before. And for that matter, there's a need to understand and appreciate that the rainy season is going to pose an extra challenge with compromised immune systems resulting from poor environmental sanitation in the country.
And Dr. Siembedu, already we've seen the rains, the floods in Accra. And if you take what the figures are as posted by the Ghana Health Service, it is in Greater Accra that we have the most cases. What should we be afraid of, because the cases are now not only coming from the communities but also being reported widely at the hospitals?
Absolutely, Roland. I think that Professor Maiwa and Dr. Mega have clearly indicated what we need to look at, particularly in this rainy season. So there are two key indicators here in terms of what we need to do: the sanitation aspect, and then the challenge that our healthcare system is likely to face. Because if you have increased number of people suffering from sanitation-related diseases, then of course that is also going to put a lot of pressure on the healthcare system. Again, there is that compromise in immunity, as Prof. rightly said, commonality of infections that people are likely to suffer and all of that. So our numbers are going to go up if we are unable to attend to these two major things, particularly how we deal with our waste, how we deal with issues of insanitary conditions, especially in the capital and then some of the bigger cities. And then the challenge of hospitalization or frequency of people to the hospital is something we need to look at, particularly in this time.
Dr. Mega, when it comes to our nutrition and the status of the population's nutritional levels, how good or bad is it in the first place, even prior to the onset of the rainy season or the wet season?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, the president has been admonishing us to improve our nutritional status by eating well, eating local food. You know, all this is an attempt to stimulate immune response. You know, we have Dr. Siembedu here, who is an immunologist and an authority on the area and can best speak to that. So basically, when you have your nutrition is that good, I mean, you're going to have improved immunity. And this is what is going to fight against the viruses. So there are some nutrients that, improve immune response. You have vitamin D, you have vitamin E, you have C, you have zinc, and others. Taking up your question directly as to how our nutrition situation is in Ghana, I don't have the figures exactly, but you realize that in relation to children, we have very high levels of child malnutrition in Ghana. When it comes to adults, I don't have the figures directly, but if you go to the rural areas, you realize that nutrition status is compromised. So of course, if your nutrition status is compromised, then that certainly means your immune system is also compromised. So if you get an attack from COVID, then it's going to be very devastating for you. So I think what we need to do is that we need to step up the nutrition education, as the president has been admonishing us, so that people can eat well. We can eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. We can eat a lot of whole grains. so that we can get all the nutrients that are necessary for improving immune response. During the rainy season, again, I mean, what is going to happen is that we're going to see flooding in several areas, as Professor Mariwa said. And once there's flooding, of course, there's going to be deficit in food. You know, we're going to see food deficit. Already, you realize that there is spiraling food costs. I mean, food prices have gone very high. You know, so as to whether people are able to buy nutritionally nutrition-rich foods, that is also another question that we can tackle later on in the show. So with the onset of the rains, there are several things that we are going to see. I mean, as it relates to the transmission of the disease in our setting here. And of course, nutrition will play a very key role. So if we are not able to get people to get the necessary food to maintain good nutritional status, then of course, it's going to impact on their health tremendously.
Yeah. Dr. Siembedu, if we have to take a look at what the treatment regime was, and then the preventive messages that were coming on, it will mean that we have to make it more holistic at the clinical level. Because now, prior to now, it's a frontliners, and so the target had always been the clinicians who were dealing directly with the corona cases. It means that every department is important at the hospital. Is that the case?
So, as it has always been, the case basically has been that all of us are frontliners now, right from the guy who opens the door for you when you enter into the facility, the cleaner at the hospital, the guy who makes the bed at the hospital, the nurse, the orderly, everybody is now a frontline health worker. You have no idea where your next patient or client is coming from. So once contact is being made, everybody in that chain, right from the reception through to the pharmacy, to the consulting room, and all of those places are compromised. And so it is important that we holistically look at the issue of education. A lot of the times, people take it as if it is only those who one interacts with the patient are the ones that are likely to be affected. No. If, let's say, I'm an ambulance driver and I pick a patient from a site and I bring that patient to the hospital, I am equally at risk. I am equally exposed, right? So these tendencies need to be looked at in terms of the holistic approach of the message that all of us are at risk. And it is important that all of us take the necessary precautionary measures to avoid the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Dr. Mariwa, if we look at what the message has been from the World Health Organization, Professor Mariwa, the indication has always been that Africa was going to see a late surge. And if you look at the pattern, it's even been slower. But now we're recording cases 200 on a day, 300 on a day, and it shows a certain pattern. What can you deduce from all these data that is being recorded now in relation to the subject of discussion?
All right, thank you very much. And I think the World Health Organization and all related international organizations talking about the fact that Africa is going to have a late surge, I think they are found and are based on the kind of conditions that we have in the country, on the continent, especially when it comes to weak health institutions, I mean health infrastructure, in terms of personnel, in terms of logistics, in terms of finance, and also poor environmental conditions that will compromise the immune system of people. And for that matter, if we are thinking of the disease hitting Africa late, then it means that some of these conditions are going to make it worse. And as we are beginning to see, I think initially we were having this kind of poor notion that, oh, it doesn't affect the black, it doesn't affect African, it doesn't kill people, it doesn't kill the young. And all these fallacies or misconceptions have been eroded. And we are being hit hard because of these underlying conditions you're talking about: poor sanitation infrastructure, poor health infrastructure and financing. And so African leaders should not relax. African leaders should take the bull by the horn and confront the disease head on, understanding the basic conditions that will lead to the surge in the disease conditions and prevalence that we are seeing. And so if you don't understand the basic conditions that are leading to it, I think we will sit there one day and the entire continent will be in a very critical situation. And that is why if you come to some of these issues, for me as a health geographer, understanding it from different perspectives, especially across geographical regions, are very, very important. If you look at our country, for instance, we have hotspots that we need to pay much attention to. We cannot take away Accra, we cannot take away most of our cities that you're talking about. And so what are the basic things that are likely to compromise our immune system and, for that matter, increase the prevalence of the disease? And for me, we have to think of our environmental conditions very, very importantly, because if we are not able to deal with such an important situation, we are going to have a very weakened immune system. And for that matter, we are going to see a lot of people not only contracting the disease, but also dying from it. And these are issues we have to take. Let me give you a typical example. Now, with the outset of the pandemic, we know very well that waste generation has increased. I mean, we are talking about disposable PPEs, nose masks, and all related matters. Even in terms of plastic, because restaurants are not operating sit-ins, people have to do in Ghana what you call takeaway. All these things will increase the generation of plastic and other waste in the country. But we look at it and realize that the capacity of waste management institutions has remained the same. And in some instances, some of the capacities has even been reduced. So if the capacity of most of these companies have reduced because, first of all, they cannot operate as regularly as possible, and with the coming of the rains, their trucks are going to break down. We are also going to have an increase in waste generation. So at the end of the day, we are going to have a very big challenge when it comes to sanitation and waste management and its impact on the health of people, and for that matter, on COVID-19. So all these things came into the reasoning of saying that Africa will be hit hard. And so understanding all these things will help us to deal with the situation right from the word go. And I don't think it is too late. It's not too late to deal with the issue. It's about policymakers, civil society organization, non-governmental organization, academia, the media, everybody putting their hands on deck and understanding some of these challenges and the way forward for it.
Dr. Amega, there was this article that was published, is actually a research finding in Forbes, in the Forbes magazine in late April. And it was at the height of all the concerns that the American society had been raising about the infection rates by one Dr. Marshall Shepard. And it gave a certain indication that if you look at a 2012 study in Malaysia, there was a key correlation with bacterial and viral infections and respiratory tract diseases and poor immune systems of citizens. Now, in that sample, they did indicate that in areas where people came from, where rains flashed away, they saw less of viral infections. But in communities where rains were stagnant, mosquitoes were breeding and other related infections that were recorded, there were relation between bacterial and viral infections. Does that relate to our condition right here in Ghana?
You know, Roland, I think one thing that we need to emphasize is that the way environmental factors, drive disease transmission is at both extremes. You know, for example, increasing temperature will lead to rise in disease transmission, and also decreasing temperature can also lead to a rise or a decrease in disease transmission. So what is instructive to note is that different settings and the way the viruses, whatever bacteria or pathogens play out in those settings. In our settings here, as I indicated earlier, you know, it's expected. We know there's empirical evidence that suggests that, once the temperatures are increasing, then of course, COVID levels are expected to come down. Another thing that we also need to emphasize is that there is also empirical evidence that also suggests that air pollution itself also leads to worsening of COVID situation. And this is because when you're exposed to high levels of air pollution, your lung system is compromised. And ultimately, once your immune system is compromised, whenever you get attacked by COVID, then of course it becomes very severe. But temperature itself and environmental factors, that is weather variables itself, has an impact on air pollution. So for example, as we see onset of rains, we are going to expect air pollution levels to go down, so that will be good for the COVID situation. When there is flooding, as you write it, to come back directly to your question, when there is flooding, of course, we're going to have stagnant water. So if you look at typical diseases which afflict us here, like malaria transmission levels is going to be very, very high. Of course, some of the viruses are going to be flushed out as they saw in their data. But I think what we need to understand here is that we need to understand that once the rains comes in, we are going to have colder temperatures, and that is a condition the viruses need to thrive. But central to all the discussions that we are having here is our immune system. So everything that goes to compromise the immune system, we need to guard against. And that is the reason why I have emphasized that we need to improve our nutrition. And it was very refreshing to hear the president himself admonishing us that we need to eat well so that our immune system can be up there. The things that Professor Mariwa has been highlighting is also very crucial. That if we have high levels of environmental diseases, that is diseases that are emanating from poor environmental sanitation, of course, your immune system will have to fight it. And then once you have a compromised immune system, then of course, if COVID attacks you, then it's the same thing. You started the show by indicating a new finding which has just been published by some researchers from the UK that dexamethasone is now a major breakthrough for fighting the COVID infection. And what they found is that those who have severe cases of COVID, when you put them on the dexamethasone, it's going to reduce mortality rates among them. And we know dexamethasone is an immune suppressor. So what you don't want is that you don't want the immune system to be competing. And that is the more reason why when you have severe COVID, already your immune system is fighting. So they need to suppress the system. I'm sure Dr. Asian might tell us more about that. They need to have a drug that will suppress the system, and then you can have relief from the virus.
Yeah, because indeed, I was just about to ask about the dexamethasone. Because if you take a look at what the reports are saying, emanating from the UK, it cuts mortality. It really doesn't give you very much high curative figures in the first place. Now, we naturally, Dr. Siembedu, have a population, and if you segment the population very well, a certain section or minute sections, especially based in the south, tend to eat very well, and the larger in the outskirts of the southern belt and then the middle and northern belt just don't have the right sort of nutritional levels. At the clinical level, how does some of these things become useful in treatment in the first place, the new drugs and our situation?
So, as has been rightly said, I think that this drug is promising, but again, it may also have some shortfalls in terms of its use. In terms of our geographical location, dietary requirements, and how it helps our immune system, I think that there's at least a fair balance between what is grown in each locality and how variations of that helps to boost our immune system, right? And so it will be important to localize in terms of the nutritional requirements of what people need per specific locality, so that they can have access to readily available nutritional foods that can help boost their immune system. One of the things that we haven't mentioned again is the lack of vitamin D, which is also a huge consequence when it comes to building up of the immune system and how it would help you to fight off infections and all of that. In this rainy season, we are going to see a lot more people becoming deficient because you can go out there and get the natural vitamin D. And so you may have to rely on food sources that would be able to provide you with enough vitamin D so that you can help fight the infection. But largely, as we have said, I think that the whole discussion is centered on making sure that if there are any other things that are likely to compromise our immunity, if there are any other things that are likely to lower our immune system so that it wouldn't be competent enough to fight the infections, these are things that we should focus on. And one of them is the insanitary conditions we find ourselves in. So that whilst we grapple with the rainy season, the attendant, usual cholera, diarrhea, and all the other seasonal diseases that comes during the rainy season, it will be important for us to also focus on helping to reduce the burden of those diseases whilst we look at appropriate nutritional interventions that are properly localized within different settings to help people fight off the infection.
Oh, very important there that you made mention of that, because this very drug is already being used for some level of treatment in arthritis, etc. And so ultimately it means that we need to complement that with what already we have in our system. That's what we're saying, Dr. Kofi Amaga. Please unmute your sound and start again. Unmute your sound. Your sound is muted, Dr.
Yeah,
Kofi.
so sorry about that. So the drug is not really for cutting back on infection. So this drug is for treatment. And it's not for treating mild cases. It's for treating severe cases. So those who have been intubated, they've been put on ventilators. Those who have been given oxygen, those are the severe cases. So once you have a severe case, then this drug will be able to cut mortality by 20%. And this is from a very rigorous epidemiological study design, randomized control trial, which recruited about 2,500 people. So it's a very large study. That is the gold standard for medical practice, for evidence for medical practice. So it's very promising. And from what I read, the UK Food and Drugs Board has recommended it for treatment, So maybe it's something we can also consider here. But fortunately, in our settings here, we don't have severe cases. There are very limited people that have been on ventilators and they've been given oxygen. But, let me add up to what Professor Mariwa said in terms of when you raise the question whether there will be a surge in Africa. It could be, but I'm very skeptical. The reason why I'm skeptical is that, you see, over the years, we have built immunity to infectious diseases in our settings here. We have been afflicted by malaria, we have been afflicted by tuberculosis, we have been afflicted by HIV and several infectious diseases. So naturally, we have built immunity to infectious diseases. You go to Kotokraba Market, you're going to see a 2-year-old child crawling on the floor with all the infections. So over the years, this child is going to build immunity. What disease can kill this child? So we have built immunity. Again, we are vaccinated. There's a lot of speculation and hypothesis which remains untested. BCG vaccination, for example, has been linked with trying to cut back on COVID infection.
Yeah.
And over here, when you are giving birth to, you are giving BCG vaccination. So, and again, we also have, some people have also built immunity against malaria. So, for example, let's say if for 2 years running, you have never been attacked by malaria, then that means that you have immunity against malaria. And there's also speculation that once you have immunity against malaria, that can also cut back on COVID-19 infection. So even though the WHO is projecting that there will be a surge, and it's based on what Professor Mariwa said, that because we have very weak health systems, so the moment levels start to go up, we are going to be overstretched. I'm very skeptical. I think the masses have built immunity. against infectious diseases, and I'm not sure we're going to see the levels that we are seeing in Europe and North America. But we also need to take advantage of some of the new drugs that are being proposed, like dexamethasone, so that, I mean, if we have very severe cases, why not? We can recommend them for use here. Yeah.
Professor Mariwa, from all these analysis that has been made by all of you, Africa and the way we live in our country, because of the tropical nature of weather and the number of cases that we tend to see of normal tropical diseases at OPDs, we seem to have built our heights very well, quite strong, inherent in us. At what point would you advise that we don't have to think it's all over and so the population is immune in many respects?
All right, thank you very much, Roland. If you look at the argument so far, we want to, I think when it all started, there was this kind of argument that it doesn't affect, I mean, with high temperatures, you're going to have it. But now we know that high temperatures are there. We are in tropical region, and for that matter, we are not so much worried about it. But now we see that something else is also happening. So I don't want us to be so comfortable with ourselves and thinking that everything is well and nothing is going to happen to us. But we have seen, got evidence. When it started, in Ghana, as of March 12, we had only 2 cases. But now we are more than 12,000 cases, and the number of deaths has moved far beyond 50 as within the shortest possible time. And so for me, it gives me a source of worry to look at the kind of conditions that we have in the country. I think you made a point that we have vast spatial variation in our development. If you look at down south in terms of health facilities, most of them are concentrated in down south. If you look at road facility, road network, good road network, all the good things are concentrated in the south. And for that matter, the northern part of the country have been neglected for a very long time. And my worry here is that when such diseases hit those areas, it's going to be very, very, very serious. And so if you are thinking about it from individual point of view, even though we are getting so much worry or very comfortable of a Ghanaian or an African child building such immunities, but we are still having situations where malaria is killing us more often. We also have situations where in our part of the and different parts, even within the country, we have different situations where people go to the hospital with strong common preventable diseases. So I want us to appreciate the fact that the conditions that we have makes us very, very weak in terms of how we can deal with the disease, especially as we have spatial variation in the levels of development and how we did. Let me give you a typical example. In Accra, Greater Accra region, we have only about 7% of the people who are doing, or 11% of people practicing open defecation. The situation is high. When you go to Upper West, Upper East, we are talking about more than 50% of the people practicing open defecation. And so if such situations happen over there, and we know that with the opening of the Bagri Dam in Burkina Faso, we are going to have flooded areas in the north. And when we have flooding, and with open defecation so high, you know that the cholera cases, the diarrhea cases, especially for children under 5. And here we should appreciate that when we are not able to deal and get some of these issues right, we are going to have a big challenge. And I think that we cannot move people, even those at the south, when we are faced with health challenges, we are finding it difficult to look. And now even the hospitals are no more safe for people in terms of COVID-19. So what happens? So we should begin to get this understanding and see how best as a nation we invest in this infrastructure, we prevent people from getting some of these basic diseases that we can prevent. And so we shouldn't be so comfortable. For me, unless we see a lot of interventions, a lot of situations where we have cases coming down on consistent basis, we should not be sitting down. If you look at it from a broad perspective, I can see that hand washing, which has been prescribed as very, very important. Now, if you go to most facilities, people do not insist on hand washing. You can see some even don't have functional hand washing facilities in their location. So people are easing on the way people are washing their hands. And once we ease on that, I think there's a challenge because most Ghanaians are beginning to feel so comfortable that, oh, now nothing is happening. And when you take round, and anytime I go around, I get worried, Roland, because the speed with which people were procuring issues of functional hand sanitizer, hand washing facilities like Veronica bucket, tippy taps, with all the things that you need. Now you go to a place, either the soap is not available or there are no tissues to clean your hands. And so for me, those facilities are becoming a source of contamination and source of worry for me as an individual who is interested in ensuring that some of these basic preventable health issues are dealt with. And so from suggestion point of view, we should intensify the education on hand washing, face masks as we are wearing them and all that. But we should also understand that beyond all these interventions, we need to put better infrastructure in place and invest in that so that next pandemic, I know this is not going to be the last one. A number of them are going to happen, even if not in our lifetime, it's going to happen several years to come. And for that matter, if you're able to build our health system so right, you'll be able to deal with some of these basic challenges that we are facing within the country.
Okay, in a minute each, Dr. Esiembedu and Dr. Kofi Amega, what are the words and cautions would you will leave us with? I start with Dr. Esiembedu.
So, Roland, I think that we need to let policymakers know that the season in which we are, which is the rainy season, is a very crucial one for us. This is a time we need to get our tactics right in making sure that we minimize unsanitary related diseases so that we don't have a lot more people visiting the hospitals. We don't have a lot more people becoming sick and thereby becoming exposed to other infections that could include the COVID-19. So it is important that we up our game in terms of how we manage our waste, how we manage our environment to minimize the spread of the known unsanitary related diseases so that we can reduce the burden and the risk of contracting COVID-19.
And Dr. Kofi Amega.
Yeah, Roland, I think my final words are just twofold. Central to preventing the spread of COVID-19 is improved hand washing. Hand washing under running water with soap. COVID-19 will be a thing of the past. But I think one legacy that COVID-19 will leave with us as Africans is that it will leave with us improved hand washing practices. When I walk around Ghana, in spite of the fact that there are some limitations in several other places where, as Professor Mariwa rightly pointed out, that you might not see tippy taps, you might not see Veronica buckets, and largely, I would say about 60–70% hand washing practices have improved. If you look at the proportion for sub-Saharan Africa, hand washing under soap, it's I think about 15–20%. So if we are doing 60–70%, that is impressive. And it means COVID-19 has been very, very helpful. So I think that is one legacy that COVID-19 will leave with us as Africans. The other thing is that I want to emphasize, I will not leave here without talking about air pollution and its link with COVID-19, because there is emerging evidence that suggests that air pollution is linked with transmission of COVID-19 through compromised immune system. Again, if you look in our settings here, we have about 70% of the population using charcoal firewood to cook and generating a lot of smoke in the household, especially mothers who cook for us, you and I, for us to eat every day. And when they are doing this cooking, they have their young children at the back. So they are all inhaling this smoke and their lungs is compromised. And once you have a very compromised respiratory system, immediately you get attacked by COVID-19, you are on a tangent to dying. So again, COVID-19 is also another opportunity for government to ensure that we have equitable access to clean cooking solutions. That means we have LPGs all over the corners so that mothers and domestic users don't have to resort to wood and charcoal burning, whereby their immune system, their lung system will be compromised. And when they get afflicted, not only COVID-19, but any respiratory illness, they will be on the tangent to dying. So those are the two things that I will leave with the audience, I'll leave with the population, that COVID-19 is not a good thing, But one legacy he will leave with us is that we are going to see improved hand-washing practices going forward as a country and as a continent.
Well, you guys are one great house of a store of knowledge. We need to put you in one research facility or institute. I mean, it's been great knowledge sharing, and I'm hoping that our audiences and viewers variedly across all sections of the demographics are also well educated. Samuel Esembedu is with the University of Cape Coast and is a microbiologist and immunologist, and Dr. Kofi Amega as well is well versed in his fields, and you have to tell us more when it comes to air pollution and its impact in our society. We'll come back to you on that. And Professor Simon Mariwa was a great one. I have my director, Yao Forsen, this morning, who says he was your student. And, well, you've had many students across the spectrum, so I'm not sure that you remember all of them. But that's a good one. Keep training all of us. We have to go to the Electoral Commission. Dr. Bosman Asare is a deputy chair of the Electoral Commission of Ghana. It's all election matters, speaking with Mamavi Owusu Abuaje. And I tell you, great education, but also great introspection that we need to do next, live from the Electoral Commission on the AM show.
It's your election headquarters. Thank you for joining us. I've come to the Electoral Commission, rightly said by Roland Walker, to come and meet with a deputy chair of the commission in charge of administration, Dr. Bosman Asare. It's 6 months to the general elections. The commission has set June 30 to begin to compile a new voters register. What is there to know with their instrument in Parliament also maturing? What must we all know as citizens? That's why we're here. Your questions are very important. If you've got comments or questions, kindly send it to our WhatsApp number. I am going to bounce it off Dr. Bosman Asare. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for receiving us this morning. So first of all, share your calendar with us as it stands today.
Okay. Good morning to you and good morning to the viewers. In terms of calendar, let me say that on 30th of June, we have our registration exercise, which is a nationwide activity. And I would like to emphasize more on the registration because the registration is in a cluster form. And when we talk about the cluster, in each district or / constituency, what we are basically saying is that 5 registration centers will constitute a cluster. And because of that, the clusters are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 registration centers will come together to form a cluster. And we are also saying that the registration is in phases. So when we begin on the 30th, from 30th June to the 5th of July, we are going to have the first phase of the registration. And all those who are number 1 on the cluster, all of them are going to be registering. Then when we finish, then we begin with number 2 on the cluster, nationwide. So when we begin the registration, all districts, all constituencies are going to be registering at the same time. But the registration will not take place at the same time at all registration centers. And currently, the Commission is operating with 33,367 registration centers. And because we are registering in phases, at each phase, we are going to register in about 6,700 registration centers.
I live in Kutunsi. The exercise will start on the 30th. How would I know which cluster I belong to?
A week before we begin the exercise, which is going to be next week, we are going to publish all the registration centers that are going to begin the exercise. And the way it's going to be done, the electoral areas, all those in the electoral areas will know whether their registration centers are beginning. All those in the district will know whether their registration centers are given. So a week before the activity will begin, all the centers will have the information that the EC is starting with this particular center, or they are starting with this particular centers. And what it actually also means is that this will be published in our newspapers. We are going to have them on social media. So as long as you are reading, you are following what is happening, you are going to receive information that the registration is going to take place at your area, or your area will be the next in terms of the registration.
What it also means with the instruments that has just matured is that we're sticking with two forms of identification, which is the passport or the national ID. Here I am sitting and talking with you this morning. I have no national identification.
Okay, as you rightly pointed out, the new CI, which is the CI 126, it comes with, there are 3 requirements to be able to register. Number 1 is that you need to have a Ghana passport. If you don't have a Ghana passport and you also possess the Ghana card, which is the card issued by the National Identification Authority. In the event that you don't have any of these 2 cards, then your next option is to use the guarantor system. And what the guarantor system basically means is that, assuming Mama V and Bossman, we have the Ghana card or we have the passport, and your cameraman doesn't have the passport or the Ghana card, what it means is that on the day of registration in our area, Mama V and Bossman will go to the registration center and we will register. Once we register and we are issued with our voter's ID card, what it means is that we now can guarantee for your cameraman. As long as we know him, we know he's a Ghanaian, we know he's not debarred from registering by any law, and we also know that he's at least 18 years and above. And Mama V, it will be interesting for you to know that last year, when we did the limited registration, we registered 1.2 million, a little over 1.2 million. Out of this number, only 59,000, representing 4.8%. Only 4.8% of them came with either the passport or the Ghana card last year, fairly recently. 150,000 of them, 1,150,000 of them, over that, they came with guarantors. So in other words, 95.2% of them were guaranteed by others. And this is something the political parties know, almost all Ghanaians know. So literally, those who enter the registration process or new registrants, they normally use, over 90% of them come through the guarantor process. So this is not something which is new.
So how many, but this is different from the last exercise that was held, because that was the district assembly elections. How many people do you foresee would come with guarantors?
No, the commission is fully prepared for it. So we've printed 18 million guarantor forms. But when you look at the information we are picking, the intelligence we are picking, we expect that by the time we begin the registration, roughly about 12 million or less 11 million of Ghanaians will have will have some form of identification, either the passport or the Ghana card. I think we understand the Ghana card before their recent giving of the cards. They started distributing the cards. I think before then they were saying they had given out about 7 million. And we know those who have the Ghana card probably will also have the passport, but you still have a number without the Ghana card, but they have the passport. So when they finish the distribution, and I think we are also hearing they are going to start registration from the 18th, which is, I think, tomorrow. And they are going to have some registration in the eastern region and some blitz across the country. So we are expecting that by the time we begin registration, roughly about 12-13 million, let's say 12 million of our people will have either the passport or the Ghana card. And we are looking at a registrable population of about maybe 15 million, between 15 and 16 million. So you are going to have a situation whereby about 70% of them have the source documents. And once you have about 70% of them having the source documents, then there is no cause for alarm. Because what it means is that 2 people, you and I can guarantee for 10 people.
But can't anybody challenge that?
No, the challenge process is there. I know you are Ghanaian. If you come with your passport, your ID card, and somebody still thinks that you don't qualify to register, the person can still challenge you. So for the challenge process, it is not exclusive to the use of the guarantors. It's not exclusive. All others can be challenged as long as there are legal or social basis in terms of if you don't reside in that particular area.
So does it mean that if you're guaranteeing for me, I don't have to show you any document at all?
This is what the commission is doing. When you are coming to register as a voter, you come, your passport says Mama Via Boaji. The passport number will be entered in our data system. We are going to have the number. When you are also guaranteeing for another person, the voter ID card, your number will be written. So in future, if we go and look for Mr. Eko, how did he get onto the register? He got onto the register because Madam, so and so guaranteed, and these are the details of those people who
Is this getting on to a certain electronic data, or this is manual? There's going to be pen and paper,
no,
so they're going to write this down.
Electronic. So when you come, you are going to fill the form. And your passport number, we have the officers there who will assist you in filling the form. For many people, we expect our officers to fill the form and write those details for them.
So how is it typically going to work? One person, do you bring the 10 people that you're guaranteeing for at the center at the same time?
Not necessarily. What it actually means is that assuming I'm the one going to register and the two of you are going to guarantee for me, when it's my turn, you just have to show up. So let's say I can be in the queue, and when I know it's my turn, I can just call you to quickly come. And we are also going to have what we call the cheat system, where after, when let's say it's 5 p.m., 6 p.m., and you are not able to register, we'll give you an indication that tomorrow at this time, when you come, you'll be able to do it. So basically what it means is that when it gets to your turn to register, the details of your guarantors will be made available, and they will be there. And we are hoping that the way our kids are working very, very fast, we expect that once people come and register, it shouldn't take that very long. Because we are anticipating that on the average, we'll be registering about 100 people a day. Some places we should be able to do 150 or even more.
Let's go back to the cluster issue and please explain. So 5 registration centers in a cluster. A cluster will be within a constituency or within a specific community? How does it work?
No, I think from the start we have 275 constituencies. Some of the constituencies are also districts. So this is what the commission is doing. When we go to, let's say, Ayawaso South, all the registration centers are going to be clustered. So we are going to 5 will constitute 1 cluster. So when we have 50 registration centers, we are going to have 10 clusters. So when we have 100 registration centers, we are going to have 20 clusters, because 100 divided by 5 is 20. So what this means is that each district is going to have the cluster system. So when we begin the registration, your district is registering, my district is registering, his district is registering. But we've done the cluster in such a way that, let's take where Joy FM, where Joy TV, where you are operating from. Kokomlemle. All the registration centers in that area, let's say nearby the premises of the multimedia, all of you will be in cluster 1, in the various clusters. So once we begin the registration, all of you in that enclave will be registering. When we finish, then we move to the Tesano area. So the way the commission is doing it in such a way that we are not going to start at your place, then the neighboring place we won't start, so that those people will think that they won't come there and they will come to your place. So we want to make sure that when we begin, all of us in that enclave, in that neighborhood, registration will be taking place for all of us.
And how many days would it take? Let's just take the cluster that you've created virtually in the Kokomlemle area where we work.
What the commission is saying is that for each cluster, when we begin the cluster becomes like a phase. For each phase, we are going to use 6 days. So when we begin at Kokomlemle, that all the polling stations around or the registration centers around, we are going to spend 6 days. After 6 days, then we move to the Tesano area. After that, then we move to the Achimota area within the same district.
Okay. So, but you just said a while ago that you want to begin at the same time with the neighboring areas so they don't all rush to where we are to register, thinking that they will be left out.
Yeah, so what it actually means that your neighborhood could have as many as 4 registration centers and 5 registration centers. So assuming we are the registration center, you are number 1 in the cluster, I'm also number 1 in the cluster, he is number 1 in the cluster, she is number 1 in the cluster, in that same neighborhood. So when we begin, all of us are going to begin. I normally use this place as an example, the King of Kings School at Jowolo. At that school, we have 4 registration centers. So what the commission is doing is that for these 4 registration centers, they are going to be in different clusters. And each of them will be, let's say, number 1 or number 5. So when we begin, all those who vote at that particular place, they are going to register at the same time. So that there will be no incentive for you to say that these people are registering and we are not. So all of us are going to join them. And that will increase the numbers at certain registration centers. So what the commission is doing is to ensure that there will be no incentive for you to say, I'm not registering at my place, but I want to go to another place.
I wonder if this is how the issues were explained yesterday as the Electoral Commission chairperson appeared before the Special Budgets Committee of Parliament, because we've had the minority leader come out to say specifically on what you have explained. He says that the EC intends to face the registration exercise, 6,300 registration centers, and specifically, he says that troubles his heart because Article 42 will not be observed in essence through making available to the Ghanaian people legitimate rights they are entitled to. So I checked Article 42, which says every citizen of Ghana of 18 years of age or above and of sound mind has a right to vote and is entitled to be registered as a voter. That's in a public election and referendum. So how does that work? Do you understand where he's coming from?
No, I think the minority leader didn't understand our explanation yesterday. We only said the registration will be in phases, as I explained to you, because we have 33,367 registration centers, and the kits we are using, the kits are very expensive. So the commission thought that it wasn't prudent to use taxpayers' money to procure an item which you are only going to use for about 1 week. Then you don't need it again till next year. So instead of registering at the same time at all centers, what we are doing is that we start here. When we finish, then we move here with that same equipment. Because these are kits, you only need them for the registration. Apart from the registration, you don't need them for any activity. So what we basically said was that of the 33,367 registration centers, we have divided them into 5. So at each phase of the registration, we are going to register in 20% of the registration centers. So when we go to, let's say, Ayawa Sunov, Trobu, Amasaman, etc., what we are doing is that 20% of the registration centers will be in the first phase. The second phase, we move into another 20%. The third phase in that order. So what we said was that at each phase, we are going to be registering in about 6,700 registration centers. And when we do that, by 5 weeks' time, we would have covered every registration center. And after that, we will also have some 3 days of mop-up. So assuming you turn 18 on the 30th of, let's say, July, but when we started at your place in June, you had not turned 18. So by the time it will get to the mop-up, you would have turned 18, and you qualify to register to vote in 2020.
But the mop-up exercise will not be carried out in phases.
The mop-up is not the mop-up is simultaneous, and the commissioner said we have 6,272 electoral areas. So the mop-up will be done simultaneously. So the mop-up will not be a specific registration center. So let's say all the registration centers in the Kokomlemle area, all of you there who were not able to register, go to multimedia. We have a center there for you to register. So we'll do it in such a way that it will not be like somebody turned 18 in the north, he wasn't able to register. But you turned 18 in Greater Accra, you were able to register. It's going to be at the same time.
One of the other issues that Mr. Idrisu came up with was the fact that he explained that data synchronization and data harmonization, the question that they put up, all the answers were not satisfactory. So he says, for instance, that Ms. Mensah said they do not intend to use the data of the NIA. So what will they do with the NIA data? How is that going to work?
I think, Mama, let's be very clear. I think we were in this country fairly recently, and the minorities leaders party came out clearly that the EC is in a collusion with the NIA so that we may end up disenfranchising. In other words, by saying that the idea that we're going to use the data of the NIA and prevent many people from taking part in the process. So for the same minority leader to come and say now, we don't know what the point he was trying to make, but to be fair to the people of this country, if you want to use the data of the NIA, you need the CI to specify that you are going to do that. The CI must specify that the Electoral Commission is going to assess the data from NIA. And that's not what the Electoral Commission is doing. So that's not what we are doing. What we are only saying is that to come and register, show us your Ghana card, evidence that you are a citizen of Ghana, or show us your passport. So we don't need the NIA data for anything. That's not what we are doing. It's not our job. That's not what the CI the CI only mandates, and I should think that the minority leader hasn't looked at the new CI, because there is nowhere in the CI which says that the EC should go and access the data of the NIA, and we cannot, and by law, we are not empowered to do that at this time.
So all you're interested in is the citizens showing up with the NIA card?
The NIA card, because we are going to take the data. The EC is the one taking your fingerprints, your facial. You know, we've said in this election, we are going to do facial recognition. The EC is in charge of that. We are not going to use data from any organization. Let's take questions, because I have said that people can send us WhatsApp messages. This one says the EC claims it's impossible to determine who used the NHIS card to register for the voter ID, and I want to challenge them that it is either they're lying or they are just lazy. All the ID numbers we have in Ghana vary depending on the digits as follows. So this person gives an example. The current voter ID has 10 digits. The NIA card, both the old and the current one, also have 10 digits, but starts with alphabets. The NHIS card has only 8 digits. The Ghana passport has 7 digits. And it says, per the above, one can easily determine who registered with the NHIS card and who did not. We've crossed this, haven't we? You're not going back. No, this is something before course, so I think it's not appropriate for me to comment on this.
Okay, so that's from Ambrose from Mamobi. This one says, why EC wants to register in phases? EC are only finding ways to disenfranchise people. Now that the EC sees the Supreme Court instructing EC to use the voter's ID card, okay, that has not been quite decided, and I think that he's done some explanation on this. Abladine Efiakuma Zongo in Takrady sending that message. This one says, good morning. Please ask Dr. Bossman how the EC is collaborating with the NIA to get a national identity database to help the EC keep track of all qualified registered voters, and also for those who would turn 18 subsequently. This will probably end the impasse in the voter register compilation and other related issues, says Stone in Kumasi. Dr. Sari says you're not interested in their database.
No, that's not what we are doing. But if there's a process, somebody challenges your registration, and you came up with you brought the Ghana card, there is a committee that is set up, what is called the District Registration Review Committee. So assuming somebody challenges the validity or authenticity of your card, and the committee is doing its investigation, it's very likely they will consult the organization that produced that particular card. Okay. And that one is a different thing altogether. It's not like we are going to assess that data.
Okay, here's Ohine Yabua says, if old voter IDs are used to acquire Ghana cards and Ghana cards are used to register for new voter IDs, then what is the need to get a new voter register, since invariably the same people with the old voter IDs will go through Ghana card registration and reflect on the new register? Is it another bridge we've crossed already?
I think the question is not, I don't think it's a correct question, because the voter's card was not the main requirement to get the Ghana card. So I think he needs to educate himself well on that.
This one says birth certificates were used for acquiring the NIA cards. I want to understand why the NIA cards would be acceptable whilst the birth certificates will not be accepted.
I think people must understand that the Electoral Commission is saying that the card you bring must bear your picture. The card you bring. So, Mama, when you are coming to register, we want a card that bears your picture. So we look at the picture. So a photo identification. So that's why we use all cards we have been using. Sometimes when we use the National Health Insurance, your picture embedded. The voter ID, your picture embedded. So once it doesn't have, but it doesn't mean your birth cert is not relevant. When it comes to the District Registration Review Committee and people are checking ages, etc. But this country, we shouldn't be kidding ourselves. We know people are 80 years, they have birth certificates indicating they are 70, etc. But that doesn't suggest that there is a card which is perfect. But this election, what the Commission is saying is that when we use the passport and the Ghana card, we think we are getting something which is more authentic, and something which will help us to ensure the register is credible and is made up of those who are really qualified.
Here's another one. It says, Mamavi, good morning. Please ask Dr. Bossman if the option of voter transfers will be done in 2020.
Yes, it's something that came up yesterday, and we assured the special budget committee members that we are going to do it. I think one of our officers was making the point that in the current CI, but it's not the current CI on elections that we are going to use. We are going to have a new one in Parliament to amend certain aspects. So certainly we are going to have voter transfer and voting by proxy.
So you're not done with presenting instruments to Parliament?
No, you know, there are several instruments guiding. The one has to do, what has just matured is the one on the registration and perhaps the exhibition. The new one will be on the elections itself. So that's it. And the current one is the CI 94, which will send a new one to Parliament. It will go through the process, AG's department, pre-laying at Parliament. Then when it matures, that one will take precedence over the one we have now.
All right, here's another one. Can I register by proxy if I'm currently trapped outside the country due to COVID-19? Fred Stack in Birmingham, UK.
Well, currently, we don't have that in our laws. We don't have that in our laws. And the CI, which has just matured, we didn't anticipate that we are going to get to a point where some people will be stuck. But we are hoping that...
but to be fair, because this CI, you kept changing. And it was presented within this COVID era. So you should have realized that people would be outside the country and would not be able to make it.
No, we couldn't have anticipated at the time. And if even we had anticipated, the law, the registration, the CL registration basically specified that you must appear in person. And you know, to do something in others' jurisdiction will require some clearances. You need to engage the authorities, and I think that will maybe also fall under ROPA, because you need you can't just say, I'm going to Nigeria to register Ghanaians. You can't just say, you need to have some clearance passages being allowed by the authorities of other countries. But we are anticipating that by the time the process will take off or come to an end, Ghanaians abroad. And I think we are picking information that, so I think yesterday
well, that's those who can afford to pay the amounts that has been stated. So I don't think that every Ghanaian outside is somebody who originally lives in Ghana will be able to come if they are not able to afford.
I think it's something which is very important, but the point is that under the current law, we are not empowered to do that.
So if you live in Ghana and you went to visit and you're trapped outside, you are not able to return, and you miss the registration exercise, then that's it.
That's it. But what we are saying is that because the mop-up, we are not finishing in June. We are only beginning in June. And it will go, the exercise will take place the end of
But it's
June.
for 30 days?
No, it's for 38 days.
Okay.
And so I'm hoping that by the time, maybe July, who knows what is up there.
But my point is within the 38 days, you're not able to return, then that's it.
That's it. Mama, don't forget that Ghanaians abroad who want to take part in the ROPA, until the process goes through, etc., they've not been taking part. So they are just like our brothers and sisters who are not able to come because of. So let's be very fair.
But ROPA is a special case because there's been a court order. Yeah, so what is the Electoral Commission going to do?
Then what we have to do, the court mandated us to ensure that we have a CI ready, which the Commission has prepared and we've sent. We are waiting for the Parliament to open the discussions on the subsidiary legislation committee. Anytime they invite us, we are ready to discuss with them and look at the ramifications of the regulations in there to ensure that Ghanaians abroad are able to vote. So assuming they should invite us today or tomorrow, the Electoral Commission is fully ready.
But beyond that, let's look at how feasible it is with coronavirus around. Will they be able to take part in this exercise?
Once the Parliament gives the approval that we should discuss the CI, then the CI matures. Then now the onus lies on the EC to put it into action. So if the EC realizes that it cannot do it, then maybe we have to go back to the court. But now we've not gotten to the stage where the CI has matured and the EC is saying that it is not in a position to do it.
So explain again. There is a CI in Parliament on that?
There is a CI which we've sent to Parliament on that. So we are waiting for the Subsidiary Legislation Committee of Parliament to invite us so that we look at it. Once we look at it, and normally the pre-laying is where they will look at the regulations and make sure that everything is in order. It will not be in violation of any existing law, and it will also enhance the credibility of the process. Once that is done and all the parties agree, then it will be laid in Parliament. Then it will start counting 21 sitting days. So, and once it matures, then the EC must work with it.
Okay. So is the court aware of the processes?
No, I think for the court gave the order that we should make sure we prepare the CI to go, and the EC has done that.
Okay. All right. Let's get some more questions before we wrap up on this. Sharif Dean from Salaga says, how will you as Electoral Commission ensure there are no foreigners included in the register and measures to put in place ensuring every eligible Ghanaian takes part? So 2 in 1. This one says, can one register with an expired passport? My passport expired last October 2019. That's from Inusa in Tamale.
Okay, let me look at the first one. The first one, how do we ensure foreigners do not get onto the register? To ensure a very credible register, it's not only the responsibility of the Electoral Commission. Our agents have been trained to ensure that if someone does not qualify, make sure you can challenge the process. Apart from our agents, the parties are also bringing their agents. And what we are telling Ghanaians is that those who are going to guarantee for others, if clearly you know somebody is not a Ghanaian, someone is not 18 years, someone is not a resident in that particular electoral area, or someone is not of a sound mind, the person doesn't qualify to be registered. So this is a responsibility of all Ghanaians, so that at the end of the day, we'll get a role which is very, very credible. If you front for someone who doesn't qualify and we are able to identify you, you will face prosecution. So Ghanaians should bear that in mind. And the second question has to do with how do we ensure all people get. The Electoral Commission is going to use 38 days. When we come to your area for 6 days, and for some reason you have traveled, etc., you are not around, there will be some 3 days which will be simultaneous in all electoral areas of our country. And for that one, just make yourself available. Our cases are very, very fast. We can register up to 150 a day. And for electoral
so we will experience freezing.
We don't anticipate that. Tomorrow we are going to have a pilot exercise. I'm expecting Joy News to be there to look at how the machines work from a practical standpoint. So obviously you cannot say you won't have some challenges doing a mass exercise, but we do anticipate that 90% of the time the machine should be working very well.
There's another leg of the question. Somebody else is questioning about an expired passport.
I know, Mama, this is something the lawyers will be able to answer very well. But I know when you talk about a passport, it is assumed that it is a valid passport. So I will urge him that if his passport has expired, we still have some time. He should make sure he goes to the authorities to put things in order. But at all times, we do expect that a passport must be indicated as a valid document. So once it's expired, I think many people will have issues with it.
All right, this one says, how then, okay, so whilst the voters register saga is still pending in court, not sure about the first line, and how smooth would it be for EC when the case is ruled against them? Okay, Bennett from Mankasim in the Central Region. I guess the question basically is the fact that you have a pending case in court and you're going ahead with the exercise.
I think the EC is a law-abiding institution, so we are just working according to the law. So now the law we are working with says that come with your passport, your Ghana card. If you don't have, others are going
irrespective to of the fact that there's a case before the Supreme Court.
So we are working. We are working.
All right, this one says, why should a Ghanaian guarantee for a Ghanaian who is qualified by the provision of the 1992 Constitution? How did it come by this decision? I mean, how did the EC come by this decision?
Well, that has been the standard practice. That has been the practice since we began this democratization journey in 1992. People may have to vouch for you when you don't have the identification documents. At times, you may be a student of the University of Ghana. If you don't have your ID card, there are certain things. They know you are a student of the university, but you won't be allowed to access. So I think this is something people must understand, that the world is changing. So if you work at multimedia, there may be an access door. If you don't have your card with you, you cannot access on that day if you don't have the card, although people know that you work over there. So what the commission is saying is that these are the identification documents. We know all of us are Ghanaians, but let's make sure, because when you come, whatever document you bring, we are going to enter in the database that brought this A, B, C, and D.
I still have lots of questions, and I've got less than 5 minutes, so let me try as possible and read all. This one says, good morning to all your viewers. I want to find out from the chair, any time frame for us to spend out the various centers as far as the voters register is concerned. I guess there will be a timetable, so we wait for that. Ibrahim Rashid from Nkranza says, Dr. Bosman, will the EC bear the costs to convey people from different electoral areas to their registration centers, especially when the registration centers have been reduced, meaning not all electoral areas will have registration centers? We have to hint on that again. I'll give you the opportunity. Abdul Momen in Tamale says, how is the commission going to help prevent foreigners? This question coming up again. This one says, how many people at least would be expected to be registered per day per center? You said 100, correct?
Yes.
This one says, please ask Dr. Bosman what they have put in place to check how long people have to wait in queues, long queues before they are registered. I spent 3 days before I got my Ghana card. This one says, please ask Dr. Bosman. I know for sure the EC have to publish the names of people they have recruited for 21 days before I guess the exercise begins, and what time in the time schedule for exhibition of voters. Let me pause there, please.
Okay, I think I'm interested in the question about how the EC is going to transport people from electoral. No, that's not what the EC is doing. The EC is registering at every registration center. So please, wherever you stay, the nearest registration center, registration will take place. And I know for 95% of our people, the nearest registration center, you don't need transportation to get there. So what we are saying is that when it is not yet your turn in your registration center, there is no need to panic. Very soon we are going to publish the list of registration centers we are going to register at each phase. So people should be rest assured that we are coming to.
Okay, somebody asked how long would the person spend, because the person spent 3 hours getting a Ghana card.
I think for the EC's registration, this is an offline registration. For each day, we are expecting the minimum, if the numbers are there, the minimum registration to be about 100. And we are registering, we are using 11 hours to register. So roughly, we are expecting that when it's your turn to register, it shouldn't be more than an average of 6-7 minutes. An average of 6-7 minutes. So in an hour, we are looking at about between 10 to 13 people being registered. So normally when it gets to your turn, our kids are very fast. We are expecting them to work at that optimum level. And tomorrow, Ghanaians are going to see it at the national level. So we do anticipate that when you are in the queue, and because of social distancing, we are anticipating that we wouldn't have more than 25 people in the queue at any point in time. So for those 25 people, I think in about 2 hours at most, we should be able to clear them. Unless, and this time too, what we are doing is that the picture is not an ordinary picture we are taking. The picture will also be used for verification purposes in instances where your fingers are defective or they are worn out. So the picture must meet a certain quality. So it's not like you just come and we take you. No, it's not going to be like that.
So how long am I going to spend taking a photograph?
I think for some people, the picture must meet a certain standard. And during our nationwide pilot in the region, we noticed that for some people, in 30 seconds, the picture will be taken. For some people, in about 1 minute, the picture will be taken. Some go to about 1 minute, 30 seconds exit, because the picture must meet a certain quality to qualify to go through the verification process.
Okay, somebody's asking, has the commission taken the pandemic situation into consideration for this exercise? If yes, what are they?
We have. At all our registration centers, we are going to provide thermometer guns, and we are working with the Ghana Health Service to provide us professionals who are going to be doing that. Apart from that, all our centers will have the Veronica buckets with the soap, the water, everything will be there. Apart from that, the commission is even contemplating the idea of having some face masks available at areas where some people don't have. But we also understand that it is now mandatory. Every Ghanaian is supposed to. So we expect that everyone who will be allowed at the registration center must come with the face mask. And all our officials, sanitizers are provided. All our officials will be in appropriate personal protective equipment.
Okay, here's a last question. If my temperature is taken during the registration and it's found out that my temperature is about 37 degrees Celsius, and for that matter, I am taken away for COVID-19 test and tested positive, if by the time I am recovered, the registration has ended, does it mean I am not going to vote during the December elections? That's Lawrence in Nkonya asking.
No, we are hoping that Lawrence, we are hoping that it's not going to get to that level for all our people. But the reality is that we are working with our health professionals. Whatever they advise we are professionals when it comes to election management. Whatever the health professionals will advise, that's what we are going to do. And we should also understand that when your temperature exceeds, let's say 37, 38, 39, etc., it doesn't necessarily suggest that you have contracted something. But I want to assure Lawrence that whatever is necessary for the Commission to do to protect, ensure the safety, protect the life of all Ghanaians, that's what the Commission is going to do.
Somebody also asked about publishing persons you've recruited. I'm not clear, but
this is something the district level, they've given them to the parties. So the parties are, when we've had instances where some of the parties have petitioned that they know some of the people belong to certain parties, A, B, C, and D. And in those instances, committees were set up and some of them have been, are no longer working for us.
Okay. All right. Mr. Bosman Asari, well, Dr. Bosman Asari, indeed, I am grateful for your time. Thank you for answering as many questions that we could ask. We're grateful that you forwarded your questions to us as well. And I'm sure this is just the beginning. Once the exercise itself has not started, we'll have many more conversations.
What we are telling Ghanaians is that everyone will be registered as long as you avail yourself. You know, registration is not compulsory, but as long as you avail yourself, either through because you have the card or others must guarantee for you, everyone is going to be captured. And on an election too, will ensure that everyone who wants to vote will also be given the opportunity to vote.
We thank you for your time. You're watching your election headquarters. Stay with us.